I've been watching your Streamlabs. It looks like
Hey.
it's good. We run it
Hey.
as well for our stream channel.
Yeah. Welcome to What Wild and Warpy. My name is Jason Smith, and I'm here with Thomas Ogden today talking about his Red River GT win with Dark Angels. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? How long you been playing? What armies do you play? And let's just cover that for now.
Oh, well, I've been playing 40k since 5th edition. I play every army but Chaos. I don't like Chaos's lore, so I refuse to field them. I quit in 7th edition when the Flying Circus was running rampant, and I didn't like the state of the game. And unfortunately, my girlfriend at the time, who I was together for 10 years at that point, said that I was putting too much money into the hobby.
No
She had
such thing.
counted up just my GT travel, like the fees for the plane tickets and the hotels,
Yeah.
not even including the models. It was like almost 20 grand that year already. So she said that something had to be changed. So I dropped from the hobby, and yeah. So I came back towards the tail end of 8th. A lot of my friends got me to want to come back and play. So it was a good hobby, and it was very healthy competitively. So I came back and started it's just a small team at the time to get me and my friends to play and have fun. It was Death or Glory, and we just kind of blew up from there. Got sponsored, and now we pretty much run we don't. Me and the other co-owner of DOG with me, Pete, are 2 of the 3 commissioners for the GLC, so the Great Lakes Circuit, and
Cool.
running a lot of events and stuff. It's super fun.
Yeah. Speaking of circuits, I believe that there's what is it? Anthony Birdsong's trying to get a East Coast circuit going with ending with a big tournament down there in Maryland. So might be something you want to talk to him about with the tournaments up there.
I think he's really East Coast though. Our
Okay.
circuit is Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. As the states we focus on. I think we have about 16 TOs.
Okay.
There's like 8 GTs in there, including ours, which is a Motor City Mayhem. Just had it a couple weeks ago. Sold out. Had 60 people on a waiting list. Next year we're looking to have 350 plus people for our event. So
That's awesome.
it's gonna be sweet. So yeah, we have a really healthy competitive scene in the Midwest. Because we're more Midwest than East Coast.
Okay.
But definitely, if Birdsong ever wants to do some partnership or that, we could look into that in the future. But
Yeah. So let's let's get down to brass tacks. All right. How
Alright.
long have you been running this list?
The Ravenwing incarnation, probably about a month and a half. I switched from Black Templars to Dark Angels right when Dark Angels came out.
Okay.
One of the armies I hate the most is Monster Mash, and it can be a nuisance to play when you're playing a melee army, and they can have a 3-up invuln with rerolls and feeling pains and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I saw the Relic of the Repentant and basically available for Dark Angels, I was like, this is going to be my army, right? I wanted it. It's my favorite relic in the game, and I originally built a Terminator brick list that ran the character with -1 damage with the banner, all the characters, some Ravenwing stuff. It was mostly Deathwing was backed up with some Ravenwing,
Okay.
and then Drukhari came out.
Yep.
And I don't know if you know who Brad Chester is, but he's 30 minutes from my house.
Yep.
I play a lot with him, and he smashed my Dark Angels was like I believe was undefeated or might have had 1 loss so far at that point.
Yep.
And I played against his Drukhari list, and it just smashed it.
Yeah,
Like
so-
I just got
So I play
What?
Drukhari personally, and every now and then I'll be checking those frontline gaming lists, and right now Brad Chester is high up there for the Drukhari players, and so I'm like, oh, what's he doing? What's going on over there? But it was interesting to see his list popped up defeated with the Dark Angels list. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get you on here is because I know some people have been having issues dealing with Drukhari. So if I can get somebody on here to talk about, hey, this is how I beat them, that's awesome.
Unfortunately, at Red River, we didn't get to play each other.
Okay.
We went into round 4. I mean, we drove to Vermilion together. Our hotel was one room apart from each other. Like, so we rode to the venue together and
Yep.
drove home together and stuff. So we went into day 2, and we were both confident from our matchup that, okay, it's going to be me and you in the finals, and we were excited for it. Unfortunately, he lost to Justin Kurz, who's a super talented player,
Yep.
playing a Death Guard slash Thousand Sun combo. And I had to avenge my friend in the finals, but ever since that one loss I had from him
Yep.
off of his server like a month and a half ago, I knew Terminators weren't the answer
Right.
because Drukari has a way of blowing through that unmovable object that's labeled as. Well, it's not so unmovable anymore, it's Drukari.
Right.
And I didn't have the speed to match him. So I knew Dark Angels had the tools to beat Drukari. It just had to be done in a different approach. So it's coming down to what could I bring to basically play against Drukari
Yep.
and still beat other lists. The list I ended up taking to the GT is actually not my real list.
No.
Unfortunately, my Samuel model didn't get delivered in time.
Okay.
So I have a Master Sanctity Chaplain on bike instead.
Okay.
But that's the two things the one thing I'd swap out would be Samuel. But yeah, so far since I switched to full Raven Wing, including its one time against Brad, my list is 7-0 against Drukari right now. And against some like really top players.
So what you're saying is Dark Angels need the nerf bat now.
No,
I'm just joking.
I don't think. I don't even think Drukari need the nerf bat, to be honest with you.
I honestly don't either. I think that with how the meta had developed, right, into this very like elite kind of less models but better saves.
Yeah.
And Drukari just countered that so perfectly when they came out.
Yeah. They have the speed. I mean, they're frail, but they
Yeah.
can kill elite things. So,
Right.
I actually think they're healthy for the meta, which I'm one of the few players in that mindset. And people are blowing up like, "Oh my God, 70% win rate! All the GT ones." Well, yeah. Well, when a majority of the meta is playing elite,
Yep.
and all these top players are like, "Well, if I switch Yukari, I'm just gonna crush a tournament." That's what's
Yep.
gonna happen.
And you know when the top players, I mean the top players bounce. A lot of the top players bounce from codex to codex.
Yeah. for sure.
And they have such a good understanding of the game in itself that it's not super important what codex they're playing because they understand how the game works. All they have to do is learn the new rules, right?
Yeah, well, you think like we talked about Brad a few minutes ago. Like when you have players like him who are extremely smart in the game, and I mean like, in my opinion, I think Brad's the smartest 40K player. I've talked to a lot of top people. I've hung out with them. I played with them. Played against almost every top player in top tables before. Brad's knowledge is just off the hook. He can talk. You can pick any codex.
Yep.
He'll tell you what the builds are for that codex. You can say I'm playing this codex against this codex on this mission. He'll be like, well, this is the sector that I think you should take for right here.
Right.
And they'll be like, and he's usually right.
Well, so speaking of, let's talk about your secondary choices real quick.
Okay.
So, coming in with this list that I know we haven't gone over yet, but we will. What were your thoughts going into for secondary choices? Did you have some predefined, or were you kind of playing by the edge of the seat?
Well, I play a lot of GT, so every time I build a list, it's always built around secondaries. Always.
Which is a good building tactic.
Yep. I know right off the rip there's only 5 secondaries I'll take.
Okay.
Not including the mission, because some of the missions are actually pretty good for me.
Yeah.
The one that's an auto guarantee that you will always see me take it is Death Under Wind, which is the Dark Angel secondary that states any of my Raven Wing models that move 12 inches or more in a killed unit in shooting phase gets 2 points.
That's phenomenal.
And if they complete a charge.
Okay.
The charge right now is in contention because it's got a comma with a period. I'm sorry, not period. A comma with an or word. Okay. So it's like its own stipulation. But some people are saying the office still hit this first stipulation of it where you still have to kill a unit. Right. I play it that way right now just because it's what most people want it as.
Right.
But that needs to be FAQ in my opinion. But we'll see, or Reddit at least.
So that's very similar to how the Dark Angel, not Dark Angel, the Drukari. For some reason, I was trying to mix Dark Eldar, but so the Drukari Codex had the Take Them Alive secondary, which I don't know if you've actually looked at the Drukari Codex.
I don't know. I know a lot of it. I know how it plays. I don't know what secondaries.
So the secondary essentially said at the end of the battle, and said at the end of like a round, and said something about a turn, but essentially said if you kill something, you score a point. So it was just the way they worded it needed help. And this first FAQ that they did already fixed it.
Well, they need that for the Dark Angel one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But either way, even if it is the one where people saying you have to kill a unit and complete a charge, which doesn't make sense to me, but even if it is, and that's how I play it right now, it's still a really good secondary because I can still max it quite easily just from the shooting.
Right.
Going from there, though, the other 4 secondaries that I choose between are very dependent on who I'm playing, what kind of list they're playing, what the terrain is like on the table, and what the mission is. There's some mission ones I like, which I'm not going to go through all those, but just realize there's some mission ones. But what's also really good from my list is Engage. That one's good against slow armies, and you're like, well, you can still get it even if the other army is fast. That's true. But generally, to max Engage, and I play to max my secondaries every game, you always have to have something in all 4 quarters. And against fast armies, I don't like to be dictated I have to have a unit in this quarter.
Right.
If I don't need to. So it's a good one for me. I don't play it a lot because generally I score about 10 to 13 points with it.
Okay.
I also have Assassinate. The speed of my army makes me a very capable sniper, not to mention just the pure firepower.
Right.
So it allows me to clean up characters if you're running 5 or 6 or more. And surprising, which like there was like this big Reddit post about my list already, and no one realized I take banners, and I take that in over half my games because I only have like 7 models that can score it. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 models that can score it. But it's actually really good for my army because I'm so aggressive with all my models. They have my few foot slogging, Terminator squads, or named characters that are foot slogging. Being able to pick up the banner for me is pretty sweet.
Just as they fall behind the rest of the rest of the army.
Yep. Yeah. As typically once I get 3 banners up, they don't take them down, and it's very easy at that point to max because you score at the end of each round plus. Each round, and at the end of the game as well, which a lot of people don't realize it scores at the end of the game.
Yeah,
which is a whole other round.
That score at the end of the game is key for banners.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that. Against armies where I feel like they're super fast and engaged in a good choice, and they have the ability to pick up banners off of me, sometimes I'll look at deploy, though it hurts my soul when I pick deploy, just because it's only 10 points.
Yeah, see, I'm actually a deploy fan. And the reason for it is because it's one of those like, okay, I can just cross this off the list. I don't have to be super concerned about my secondary choice for this slot, right? And it allows me to do, instead of taking like what is that in the line breaker category? I think. Instead of having to take something where I have to.
So line breakers, it was Engage. I think.
Okay.
I think those. Domination's also a good one sometimes, but I think Engage, line breaker, domination are the same one.
The only reason I don't love, I don't love domination because I feel like I'm forced to put myself out in the open and be shot at, and I'm not durable enough for that. Right, Dark Eldar is very flimsy once they're out in the open.
Yep.
So I tend to just eat the 5 points and then focus on making sure that with at least one of my opponent's secondaries, I prevent 5 points.
Yeah.
Ends up in a slightly lower score for me, but it happens.
Yep. For me, when I choose deploy, it's like, okay, I'm starting 5 points down.
Right.
So, that's why I don't like deploy. It's if you see me taking deploy in any mission, the players I'm playing against is either got an army that's good against my army, or he's super good, and I don't like the terrain, or so it's got a combination of those things. That's when I'm like, okay, there's not a clear good choice against this army. I have to go for my backup of my backup.
Right.
It's like. But that's how I feel about the secondaries. But whenever I make any kind of list, I've always built lists around secondaries. Like, if I'm playing like my Black Templars, Oath is really good for me. While we stand, we fight. Banners, even Engage, because the whole advance and charge thing for them is pretty sweet.
I just did an interview with Austin Wingfield. That actually just ended, and it was specifically about building lists. And one of the biggest things that both of us harped on is when you go into building a list, have a plan, right? How do you want your army to operate? How do you want to score points?
Hey, your list has to have an identity. Like
right.
what is the identity of this list? What is it? What's it good at? What can it beat? What does it struggle against? Exactly. Like that's I get a lot of people requesting like tactic roundtable stuff on our Discord, and that's one thing I go over a lot. Is how do you build your list? Come up with an identity. It has to be synergized towards that goal, right? Like, what is the identity list? What's its goal? And everything needs to be working towards that goal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, a lot.
How you score is how you win. So if you're looking to build a competitive list, you can throw a list together and it can be super awesome, and you can walk off the table with 45 points every game because it's not good at scoring, right? Or you can get almost tabled every game, but if your army's efficient enough at scoring, you can still pull out wins.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I've had some games, so we have like a couple of tables set up in my garage where we stream and stuff.
Yep.
And we always nickname it the lab because a lot of times we won't finish games out there. We'll re-rack a lot and just practice and practice and practice.
Right.
And we've had a lot of games out there though when we do go to the end with them, like both sides are just being demolished.
Yeah.
You like there's maybe 500 points on one side and 400 on the other side, but it's like a 92 to 88 victory or something silly because like it's you have to think we're no longer in 5th, 6th, or 7th edition, or even 8th, I believe, where you can roll for a turn 6 and turn 7. It's over at 5.
It's over. And one of the things I actually really like that they changed about 9th edition is there's no requirement to kill an opposing unit. If you don't take a secondary that says kill an opposing unit, you can win a game without killing a unit. It's gonna be
that's
tough.
Where we're in a disagreement.
It's gonna be tough. I'm not saying it's not, but you could technically, I should rephrase, technically win.
So as a player who generally ends up in the top tables, and even as a TO, I see a lot of top tables end up where they don't even interact with each other.
Right.
It's like I got my hat table, you got your hat table. See who can score more of their secondaries than the other.
Right.
And that bothers me in a way as a player. And I'm never gonna trash somebody for playing that way. I'm never going to think they're lesser or anything for playing that way. But when you look at my list and stuff like that, I play old school mentality. I play a bully list. I want to put you on your heels turn 1. Right. I want to make you uncomfortable in the game. Not like personally uncomfortable, but like strategy uncomfortable, right? I want you to.
You want to dictate the flow, right? 100%. You want your opponent reacting to you at all times, and not you reacting to your opponent.
100%.
Because so that's a really big thing when you're playing. If you can knock your opponent off their game plan turn 1, a lot of players don't recover fast enough to make it up.
Yeah, to respond.
Yeah,
they have no way of retaliating to you. So like, and first off, say like me as a player, I don't want people to think I'm like a mean asshole or anything like that when they're playing against me. I'm one of the most friendly people to play. Like I don't do gotchas whatsoever.
Right.
I don't. I play by intent. I'll never measure like, oh, you're 0.1 inches out, but no. Like if that was your intent, move your guy over.
Right.
I've had games on top tables where the guy's like, what was my intent to get cover save? And this guy, I'm like, all right, move your guy an inch over and put him in the cover. Then I'm cool with it.
Right.
Like if that was what you wanted to do it. When I played my final match against Justin Curtis, you know, he went to charge into one of my command squads and my apothecary, and he was like thinning out his Terminator brick very thin and trying to stretch over objective. I was like, hey, just before you're aware, you know, I can pop a stratagem on my Terminators and make you only fight base to base, so you won't kill my Terminators if you do that. And I could have easily not said anything and not been considered an asshole. And it had been his fault because I told him about that strategy before the game, but I wanted to make sure that he didn't lose my sight of that, and then I just pull his got you and screw him over. I'm like, no. He's like, oh, thanks, man. So he actually moved his Terminators back over and put more than just two guys in base contact.
Well, nobody likes walking away from the table feeling like they got cheated, right?
Yeah.
You want to walk away from the table going, man, I put everything into that, and I just didn't come away with it this time. Or I put everything into that, and I got it this time.
Yeah, for me, that's if I'm gonna beat you, I want to beat you at your best.
Right.
We're playing toy soldiers. This is basically like toy Barbie soldiers for us because we like to build them, make them pretty, act like we're generals and move models. I want to have fun, you know.
Yeah. Look, there's nothing wrong
So
with making pew pew sounds when you shoot your guns.
yeah, 100% agree with it. But I advocate a lot too because like in the circuit we run and any official Death or Glory event because we're getting like some really big events into our circuit now. Like our RTTs are over 50 people sold out within the first day.
That's
Um,
that's huge.
Yeah, but the one thing that people love about us is that we enforce the code of conduct, and we tell everyone at the beginning of every event we can't force people to play by intent because that's not part of the rules. We heavily encourage it though, and we don't like assholes at our events. Like you come in here and bring a tough list, play it as best as you can, but play it with a smile on your face and make sure your opponent's not feeling like they're being cheated or something like that. You know?
Because even though we all want to win, we also want to have fun. And if you're not having fun, then you're not going to come back and play more.
Yeah.
We don't want to discourage new players from coming out to events. We want them to come out and have a good time. So
we had a big talk about that at Vermilion, by the way, at the Red River GT. Like we had a couple new people come up, and it was me and Marcus Spielheimer, I think his last name. I don't know. I just know him as Marcus. He's one of the TOs in the circuit. Super chill dude. And we had a couple new guys walk up to us and like, this looks like a lot of fun. And you guys me and her are both towards the top of the event so far. And you're like, what kind of advice you give us new players who want to try out tournaments and stuff? And, that's one thing. And me and Marcus went pretty hard into was like, listen, man, if you're ever going to play competitive, you get good. Don't ever treat your opponent like he's crap. No. Don't ever get mad at dice ever. If you have bad dice, just, oh, that sucks. Cool, move on. If your opponent has amazing hot dice, don't make a comment about it and make them feel bad about it. Like, oh man, that's cool, awesome, good job, and don't ever be a gotcha player. And I'm not gonna name a name, but there's somebody who was towards the top at the time, and they just got done gotcha somebody the first round, and I purposely called it out pretty hard in front of them because like, don't ever be a gotcha player. Right. Like, I didn't say their name to that person, but I made sure that they heard. I was like, because that's what's bad for this hobby. When you get new players in this hobby, and they, especially when they're brand new to the hobby and they dropped like $300-400 on an army, which is expensive for people who's not used to this hobby.
You don't want people getting discouraged right away.
Yeah, you show up to an event, you get paired against a top player who's just an asshole. You're like, wow, that sucks. I never want to go back. I mean, that happened to me in Magic when I was like 15 years old. I went to an event when I was in Magic, and I had this guy just come pull out these weird rules against me, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm good. I don't want to be part of this community.
I'm done.
And walked away. I never went back.
So let's dig into this list. All right.
Absolutely.
Let's dig in. So you're starting with an Outrider attachment. Of Dark Angels. Yep. So you're paying for an extra relic. It's got your lieutenant and a Primaris chaplain on bike.
One thing I'd like to point out, I want to point out one thing. We'll talk about the chaplain, but I also want to talk about Samuel.
Okay.
Samuel's actually in my real list. For everyone who is listening, his model didn't get delivered in time, so I was not able to run him at the GT, so I put in the chaplain. But since it's an Outrider and every model has the Ravenwing keyword, it becomes a second company detachment for Ravenwing.
Cool.
And way that's important, my bike squad that has an attack bike gets objective secured.
Oh.
The attack bikes don't get it, and there's a lot of people out there who's like, oh yeah, attack bikes get it. No, if you ever play against Archangel player, that's not true. They have the bike keyword, but it doesn't. The keyword that gets it, it says it has to be a bike squad.
Okay.
But so that's my only natural objective secured unit in the army is that one bike squad. The lieutenants are actually Talon Masters.
Okay.
So they fall underneath the lieutenant slot to buy on Battlescribe, but they're actually Talon Masters. Best way to explain them: they're a 8 wound, toughness 6 land speeder that has 12 assault cannon shots and 6 heavy bolter shots. It moves 18 inches. It has a power sword, so it's not bad in close combat.
Right.
It's not great, but it's not bad. And it gives all my Dark Angel units reroll 1s to wounds. All my core Dark Angel units.
So would you say in general they stick tight to the rest of your units, or do they use their speed to kind of split off and go take objectives, or what's the general role of the Talon Masters?
Generally, early in the games, they generally stick with the command squads where you can't shoot them.
Okay.
Um, Even if they're the closest model to you and they're within 3 inches of a command squad, you cannot target them. They have the bodyguard rule.
Okay.
So, and Sammy does the same, but generally by like round 3, 4, or 5, my army Voltrons. So it starts to separate very quickly and try to control objectives at that point and just
Right.
dictate the mission. Usually my attack bikes are doing that after round 1 or 2, depending if I go first or second and what the train's looking like. It's usually around 2, maybe 3 that the Talon Masters start doing the same thing.
Okay.
But yeah, and they also hit on 2s, by the way. I should tell you that.
Okay. And are they
What?
are they a possible while we stand we fight model, or have we not gotten high enough points value yet?
They could be if I would drop one multi-melta from each of my attack bike squads.
Okay.
Then it would be Azrael and those two as my while we stand when fights. Unfortunately, my attack bikes are 5 points more expensive with that multi-melta, and I
Yep.
just don't. I would like to do that. It'd be really, really good secondary for me if I could work that out. But unfortunately, I don't want to drop that third multi-melta.
Right.
It's come clutch too many times, so I generally don't take while we stand we fight because of that.
Okay. All right. It looks like you chapter command, master of sanctity. Do you have
On a bike?
Yep. Do you have a relic in here that I just don't know about because I don't know Dark Angels well enough?
You can run a relic on him. I didn't run it on this GT, just because I haven't really play tested him a lot in this list.
Okay.
And he was a model that I had assembled, painted. It's actually a beautifully painted one from my friend's named Rich. It was a gorgeous model.
Yeah.
Got lots of praise at the GT actually.
That always feels good.
So I ran him pretty much bare bones as much as possible.
Right.
The one thing that's not on the list you have is he did have Rights of War,
Okay.
which gives himself objective secured in any unit within 6 inches of him.
Okay.
There was a submission issue that the GT knew about, and I just had to correct it before every match.
Okay.
Let them know.
Yeah.
But he did have Rights of War.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving down to your elite section, you have a Ravenwing Apothecary.
Mm-hmm.
What's his job? What's he doing for you?
So he's a 14-inch model. I mean, not 14-inch movement model. He gives me feel no pain. What's really important about him is he has the reliquary of the Repentant. So what that does is within 3 inches of him, any model cannot have greater than a 5 up invuln save.
That's phenomenal.
So yep, it literally states anything that's lower than a 5. So if you roll like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, unmodified, you don't get it. So he's really good. He's my anti-monster mash model. Does good against custodes. I mean, anything that you have a 4 up or better, Mortarion, he's just great. He just equalizes it, and then you just eat a whole bunch of Melta.
Yeah.
So
Speaking
he's
of
good. Good.
I was about to say, speaking of Melta, we come down to your bike squads.
Yep. So I have 3 attack bike squads. They all have multi-melta, so that 165 point squad has 6 multi-melta shots, 12 bolter shots. During the Devastator Doctrine, they get an extra 3 inches of movement and can flat out and still fire. So you're looking at a 23-inch threat range of movement with 24 inches of firing. So they're pretty scary.
So essentially the table. Not quite the table, but effectively.
100%. For anything they usually want to shoot, if you're not on that back, depending on deployment, if you're not on that back edge, which means you're pretty much out of the fight for at least a turn, they're doing their job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they sound like you have to keep an eye on them.
100%.
You can't just let those guys run around the table. What's their saves?
3 up, and just like any Raven, if they move the turn before, they have a 5 up invuln against shooting. If they flat out, they have a 4++ against shooting.
That's nice. It's like having the old Jinx rule.
It basically is Jink. It's what's called is Jink.
Okay.
And I can make one of them -1 to hit in shooting as well for a CP.
Okay. So then you have a regular bike squad. Is there a reason? Oh, I guess the rule of 3 is why you didn't put that 4th attack bike squad in, right?
100%.
Or okay.
And it's objective secured as well. So I want at least one natural objective secured unit.
Okay.
But honestly, if there wasn't a rule of 3, if there was a rule of 4, there'd be a 4th attack bike squad. If you want to be honest. So.
No, I trust me. I get the feeling.
Yep.
If it weren't for the rule of three, I'd have more incubi squads.
100%. So that squad is 3 bikers. They all have chain swords. There's a melta gun on a regular dude and an attack bike with a multi-melta. Now, on my natural list, I don't have that extra melta gun in that squad
Okay.
because Samuel has more points than the chaplain.
Okay.
And it generally just has the attack bike with a multi-melta, but they all have chain swords. So you're looking at 16 bolter shots from that squad that moves up to 23 inches and fires in first turn. The multi-melta still, and then all the AP1 close combat attacks will, which is actually not bad.
So
So
so between all your bike squads, you kind of have this combination of like, well, I can pop a big thing, I can
Yep.
pop a whole bunch of little things.
Yep.
Essentially, what do you need that game, right?
yeah,
All
and,
attached to a
and
ton
speed.
of speed.
The
All
thing
attached
about
to
my
a ton of
list,
speed.
oh yeah, it's speed. Speed kills, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, so one of the things that I like best about having speed in a list, right, is if you only have, let's say, a 4 or 5 inch movement, which there's nothing wrong with only having a 4 or 5 inch movement, but your options when you only have a 4 or 5 inch movement are very limited, right? When you have a
and sometimes
go ahead.
when you're playing against a good opponent, sometimes you have no options.
Right.
You know, when I play against a Terminator brick, I'm like, all right, cool, they're all melee, awesome. So you can't advance and charge, right? Yep, cool, correct,
Yep.
correct. So you move 5 inches. So I'm going to literally put myself 17.1 inches away from you, and you can't even charge me via double six.
Yep.
And now you do nothing.
Yep. And then
Um,
you just skate the edge of the table and interact when you have to.
Yep, 100%.
But so like when you have a 22-inch movement, right, or like the Drakari bikers have a 26-inch movement, with the advance, right? You have
Different game.
you have so many options, right? On the flip side, though, there's so many bad options.
Yeah.
You can make a lot more mistakes with 26 inches of movement than you can with 4.
That's true, 100%.
So that's one of my favorite things about speed is just the sheer options that it ends up giving you at the end throughout the course of the game. So and then we have 2 Ravenwing land speeders. What are they doing for you?
Vengeance.
Yeah.
The Vengeances are actually one of my favorite units in the Codex, and the funniest thing I saw, because I didn't even see the Reddit post at first, when like a lot of people in Discord started tagging me in it. Everyone's like, "Why the hell is this guy running Vengeances? They're not good." And I couldn't disagree that any more than I possibly am right now. So they're only 12-inch base movement, you know, only 12 inches.
Yep.
But unlike the theme of most of my guns, where they're 24 inches, they're 36-inch threat range on these guns. So its main gun is a 2d3 amount of shots that starts at strength 8, 2 damage, AP 3. That can be overcharged, which, hint, hint, it's almost always overcharged, to strength 9, damage 3.
Well, how many wounds do these guys have?
9.
Okay, and then what's the overcharge penalty?
You just take a mortal wound.
Okay, so you can probably afford 5 mortal wounds throughout the course of the game.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, damage 3, why is that such a big deal for you? Well, I have a stratagem available to me called Weapons of the Dark Age that gives me +1 damage. So now one of these guys is sporting a 4 flat damage weapon, and you know, if I was to ask you right now, why do you think a 4 damage flat weapon is so good? Why would you tell me you think it's good?
Well, so there are so many different units in the game that hit 4 wounds.
Yep.
And nobody likes to do, okay, now I have to hit you with 2 instead of 1.
Yep.
Right? Everyone likes to just 1 went through, 1 dies.
100%.
And then on the other...
And don't forget all the 3 wound -1 damage units in the game right now too, like Dark Angel Terminators, Death Guard across the board. That damage, that -1 damage, I think is gonna be a theme, and I think the sweet spot they're gonna put on is like 3 wound models.
Yeah.
And having something that just threatens 4 flat damage, that's high AP, high strength, is scary.
I can tell. So I generally have grotesques in my list, right? I had them in for the majority of 8th. I had grotesques in my list, and that 4th wound is key. There's the difference between having 3 wounds and 4 wounds is massive. It's I guess really it's the same as having the difference between having 2 and 3, right? Because there's so much 2 damage weaponry out there
100%.
that once you get that 3rd wound, now you need 2. Well, once you have that 4th wound, D3 damage is like, okay, well, roll it. Let's see how many this guy can eat.
And the tournament alone, I went against Space Wolves that had Thunderwolf Cav, so it just was picking up Thunderwolf Cav left and right.
Yep.
Every four up you fail is a dead Thunderwolf Cav. I went against Death Guard with 3 wound Terminator's -1. That's not fun for him.
No.
And went against Monster Mash one list. I went against Custodes with, they only have 3 wounds, but still,
Right.
it's still, I didn't have to do the upset page, but those things are still picking up Custodes on failed saves.
You only need one to go through.
Yep.
And so yeah, having something like that is kind of perfect. And at 120 points, how many shots did you say it was?
It's 2d3, and then you also get 3 heavy bolter shots, which is also 36 in range, 2 damage flat.
That's pretty affordable.
Yeah.
For the speed and the shots that you're getting out of it. I'm sitting here looking at my my Ravager going, you don't seem so good at 140, 155 points.
Oh, and the funny thing is, I'm looking at it, and they're a hard model to get a hold of right now, and I think I just found another one. So the new irritation list might be, drop in the chat one, obviously back to Salmon, because that's what I need my list. But I might drop the one bike squad that's OPSEC, since I'm running Rights of War anyways, and run in a 3rd Vengeance.
Yeah.
I love them a lot. And I have a few people in my Discord, they saw me win the GT with Dark Angels, and they're like, okay, well, they tried my list. And he's like, well, I literally could show you screenshots, like, well, these Vengeances suck. I'm like, well, they're honestly not playing them right, because
no, so
there hasn't been a... Go ahead.
That's something that Austin and I just talked about in our interview about list building. It's why, when you take somebody else's list, a list you didn't design yourself for the most part, why doesn't it work? Why doesn't that list work for you, right? And the reason is there are so many... Like, when you put those land speeders into your list, you had an idea for them, right? You knew how you wanted to run them. You kind of had, like, this thought of, like, well, if they can do this, then they'll be worth their points.
Yep. Pretty big fan of them. I love them. And then we go from there. So that's done with my Outrider. We're going into the first company detachment, because all of them have the Inner Circle keyword. You're looking at Azrael, Ezekiel, 2 named characters, with 3 Deathwing command squads, which are a Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Sergeant with a Lightning Claw dude. So, and those, before I get into the named characters, because it's going to be a little bit more of a longer winded.
Okay.
The command squads are really, and I hate, it's funny to say this because they're the cheapest cheapest portion of my list. They're almost the linchpins of my list.
Yeah.
My list is designed to play as basically Hero Hammer, and basically you, unless I'm playing against a lot of ignore line of sight shooting army, you will see like one of those squads, which is 2 guys behind a wall somewhere, completely out of line of sight, with heroes on the other side that can't be targeted by shooting.
Right.
And they're just, causing havoc everywhere they go, which is great.
Well, I do think that we're going to see the return of no line of sight shooting.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Right around the corner. So.
Yeah, I was checking out some lists for Maryland Open that'll be out this weekend, and I'm seeing Manticores, I'm seeing Night Spinners, I'm seeing, with the addition of all this heavy terrain on the table, which I love because I think it really helps equal out the table. No line of sight shooting is just, it's going to come in big for people.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. The cool thing about my command squads, though, they cannot be wounded on anything less than a 4. Which can't go because of the Inner Circle keyword. One of them is a 2-up save, one's a 1-up save. They have invulns, especially when they're by Azrael, so you have a 4-up no matter what, always against shooting. So if you target the Lightning Claw dude, cool, it still has a 4-up.
Yep.
And when I put them in cover and you're not ignoring cover, now I have a 0-up, 1-up save. So a lot of the stuff that's ignore line of sight shooting is usually like an EP2.
Yeah. And
generally I can have 2-up saves against that still, with feeling no pain.
Which, I mean, it's tough to crack that.
Yeah,
It's tough to
it's
crack.
just and like a lot of things like it's like you get a certain amount of shots, but you don't hit on fours, and you usually wound on twos. Well, now you're only hitting on fours and wounding on fours.
Yeah.
So now you're only looking at getting 25% of those wounds through what you rolled originally. You know what I mean? So it seems weird, but these little 2-man squads are super durable. I
I
love them.
I have to correct my last statement. So a 2-up is really hard to get through unless it's Archon.
Not on my list.
If it's an
uh,
Archon, it automatically fails immediately. So,
yeah. Well, for me, you don't have a 2-up against me. You have a 5-up.
okay. Yeah, no, that's much worse. It's much
Yeah,
worse.
yeah. I love it. Um,
Archon's just gonna stay away from you.
yep. And then when we look at that, we look at the two named characters, which is Azrael, which, I mean, what I really like about my named characters, including Samuel, and he's not in his list, but he will be in the future ones.
Yep.
They all have sweet swords, weapons that are like a relic by itself, so I don't have to pay the CP for them.
Yeah.
And they all have these cool rules, or one way or another, make my list work.
Yep.
For Azrael, that 6-inch aura of everyone has a 4-up against shooting is so good. Because you will almost always see me castle deployed in case I don't go first. Yeah. I love going second, by the way. The only army I don't like going second against is Drukhari.
Really?
Everything else I love going second. I love controlling the turns. I love controlling the tempo.
Is there a particular reason for that?
My army's super fast and super durable against shooting.
I mean, against Drukhari.
I don't like letting you get to the middle of the board.
Okay.
We can go over that in a second, but there's a strategy against Drukhari that's been very effective so far. And it relies on you not controlling the middle of the board.
Okay.
But so that's what Azure does. He also allows me to look at a unit within 6 inches in the command phase and give it full rerolls, or put it back in another doctrine. So you see me like he will look at something like you're back in Devastator doctrine. Now next thing you know they're moving 23 inches and still firing. So.
Yep.
And he has a cool sword, does more wounds in combat and stuff. So, and he's 6 wounds, 2-up save, 4-up. Has a watcher, so I believe he gets to deny with a reroll. But I generally don't use him because I usually use Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is really good at that. Ezekiel, on the other hand, he's first off he's a librarian, hits on 2s.
Yep.
He's a D3 damage sword, flat 3 against heretics or fallen, which is awesome. And he has some of the best powers in the game, in my opinion. I don't think he has the best powers in the game, but they're up there.
Right.
So the 3 he gets that I take, 18 inches. I don't have line of sight. Just gotta be within 18 inches of you. And I say, I only have to cast it on a 6, by the way. And I'm like, cool. You take a mortal wound just for shits and giggles, and you always fight last now until my next psychic phase. Which is super key because one of the stratagems for my Raven Wing, which is my entire army basically is Raven Wing besides. After I swing at you, I can pay 2 CP and run away from you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times if I have a beat stick character or like a Vanguard squad come up there, I just pick them, say you always have fight last, you charge me next turn, and I run away.
So is that
after I swing at you?
Is that 100% targetable?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's a character. It doesn't matter what it is. 18 inches, pick it. You're good to go.
Well, look how Sir only affects in the shooting phase.
Right. I know that some psychic powers say like closest or line of sight. Yep.
Nope. There's no limitation. Just within 18 inches.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
So
There's another power you have that I look at your unit and be like, by the way, you're -1 leadership and you don't have objective secured this turn.
That's
psychic phase.
That's key. The ability to remove objective secured, especially with how few objective secured models you have naturally.
Yep.
Probably.
That's why people don't understand. They're like, well, how do you win objective game when you don't have objective secured? Well, I'm going to hold one of my objectives that you're probably not on. I'm going to try to shoot you off of another one, and then I'm just going to take objective secured from you and throw objective secured unit on there.
Well, for
or just outnumber you in models if I don't have the objective secured left alive. Just put more models on the objective than you do.
Well, I find throughout most games, you generally have a fight on 1 or 2 objectives at a time, right?
Yep.
You're not fighting on 5. So you don't need objective secured on 5. You need objective secured on 1, maybe 2. And if you can remove their objective secured, then it reduces it even more.
And his last power, I look at a unit and be like, by the way, you lose that aura.
Yeah.
It's so good, so good. I did it against an orc player who had an aura of 5++, and he had a 40 wound Stompa. It was like a 1,000 point Stompa model, or
Yep.
whatever. I played against him. I was like, you don't. Not only do you not have your invuln, but now I'm just gonna all these Meltills going to just go right through.
Yeah.
Super cool guy I played, by the way. His second round of GT, but we'll go over that in a little bit.
Okay.
So that's my list.
So that's the
works.
list. Awesome.
Samuel, what I like about him over the chaplain, by the way, is he has an extra inch of movement, so he goes 15 inches. He's got the fly keyword, so he doesn't get bogged down like a chaplain can. In the turns he charge, he's basically like a thunderhammer, without any -1 to hit and higher AP.
Cool.
And he has double the amount of bolter shots as a chaplain does, and he has a D3 plasma cannon shot.
How much more expensive is he?
10 points.
Oh. Oh.
So I don't have that melting gun.
Yeah.
Oh, and he can look at a unit and be like, by the way, as long as they're Raven Wing keyword, like, by the way, full rerolls for you. Go get him, Tiger.
But I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You just melted my brain a little bit. Because that's not, that math doesn't work right.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, anytime you can find something like that and squeeze it into a list, that's phenomenal.
I mean, the chaplain for 140 points, the primary chaplain bike with Master Sanctity can do some crazy stuff too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he wasn't kitted that way for me because I try to stay as close to my Raven Wing theme as possible.
Okay.
And having a super juiced up standalone dude doesn't really fit what I'm trying to accomplish. So he can be alright in combat. I gave him the strength mantra, so he's not bad. But he also had recitation of focus, so he can look at you and be like, by the way, +1 to hit, trying to somewhat fill that void that was missing from Samuel.
Right.
But yeah,
The
he's not a bad
void.
model. Yeah, he's not a bad model, but he just doesn't fit what I'm trying to accomplish. There's a lot of builds out there you can run him. Like if you're running the champion build, running the chaplain with the champion is amazing. Because you have a lot more units that are going like close combat base for Raven Wing, like the Black Knights and the champion and a couple other things, and getting +2 to their charge aura from him would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for my list, I don't like getting into combat too often.
Well, and with how quickly you move, I mean, the +2 always comes in, right? It's always good to have that extra charge distance. But I find a lot of times when you have this much movement, it's not as necessary, maybe.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, keep in mind, if I do flat out, I can't charge. There's no advancing in charging stratagems for Dark Angels.
Well, maybe there should be.
I would love for this. I would love for there to be. GW, if you're listening to this somehow, please give us an advance in charge stratagem. You can make it 3 CP for all I care. But give us something.
GW, if you're listening to this, can Jukari have a fight against stratagem, please? That'd be great. I'm sorry, that works on something other than just witches.
Yeah.
That'd be...
But,
thanks.
Yeah, that's my list. That's how it works. I love it.
So,
Very happy with it.
Earlier you were talking about how you go into Jukari.
Okay,
so
we'll get into that.
And not wanting... and this... Jukari being one of the few armies where you actually want to go first instead of second.
It's the only army that I really want to go first and not second. I feel like when you have a durable army that's fast and can respond and let you do your own thing, and then I just come out and disrupt your plan and just push you on your heels because, like, let's say you try and go for an even push on both flanks, and next time I just collapse one of the flanks, and you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? I love it. Unfortunately, when I play against Jukari, so after getting absolutely curb stomped by Brad's listen to my Terminator list, I came up with the first version of this list, which changed after 1 or 2 games, and it's what it is now. It is now 7-0 against Jukari.
Yeah.
Against some of the top players in the country, in my opinion. And I'm not gonna say all their names. It's the one we already talked about, just because I don't want them to feel like I'm calling them out or anything like that.
You're like, haha, I beat you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do anything like that. But 5 of the games I did get to go first. 2 of the games I didn't.
All right.
But in my opinion, why people cry about Drakari is they kill a boat, and then they try to kill the troops inside of it. That ain't my game plan whatsoever. I'm gonna go first turn, and it's my goal to remove every boat you have.
Yeah.
And then you're just walking across the board at me, and I have a lot of bolters at that point. It's gonna be really fun. And,
I can tell you as a Drukhari player, if you destroy a boat, and I have another boat, whatever I want to move across the table will be in that other boat.
yep.
Right? Because
Yep.
what I don't care what boat they're in. I just want them over there.
Okay. And when I move 23 inches, not to mention there's trips like I can pregame move as well. So there's like if you have like your boat with double racks hidden that I hate that boat. And there's always one in every list. Or maybe your master succubus is somewhere that could be very threatening in the first turn if you get to move or second turn. I'll pregame move my squads up, and then start the turn, and they can pretty much guarantee get at least that one squad get 6 Melta, 12 bolters, and one of those boats I want off the board.
Yeah.
But I think the most boats I went against in the list was like 7 raiders in a list. And it's the only game where I didn't kill every raider first turn. And they walked out with the raider with like 2 wounds on it. That's my goal. And the funny thing is, you look at my list like, well, you're probably gonna shoot all your multi-meltas first. No, actually, I don't. I'll plink a Talon Master or a few other things first and try to kill. See what I can do to one of the things. Yeah, well, what I'm looking to see is I'll keep going until I fail to kill a raider at that point. Because then when I activate the first attack bikes with multi-meltas, those 12 bolter shots are going into that raider with 1 or 2 wounds, trying to finish off with bolter shots. While the multi-meltas are all going into another one and trying to finish that one off.
And that's a good way to kind of break down how to do good target selection, right? Is start with the things that either probably aren't going to be super effective, just in case they are, and then move towards like, okay, well, this guy has 4 targets he can shoot. He should probably be one of the later guys to shoot. A, he has additional targets just in case stuff gets destroyed, and B, if a lot of things are wounded, maybe I can split them up. Maybe I can plink a couple things off with his other gun.
Yeah, the only time you'll see me ever, and usually, actually, the first thing I usually shoot are vengeances first, because they generally can kill raiders pretty reliably, getting like average of 4 shots at 3 damage each, and 3 heavy bolter shots at 2 damage each. They're pretty reliable at the very least, taking a raider down if it doesn't kill it to like its last couple of wounds. But the only time you'll ever see me actually focus on troops is if you deployed one of the raiders like super aggressively, and if I don't kill that witch squad or whatever it's in there, they can get first turn charges off still. Then you'll see me focus on those troops. But generally, it's always the boats.
So,
and
one of the things that I, as Drukhari player, have started doing is just because you have transports on the table doesn't mean they have to be full turn 1.
Yep.
Right? You don't have to start your stuff in a transport just because you have a transport. And I think that's a trap a lot of people get caught in. Is that, oh, I have a transport, the guys have to be in the transport. They don't. They don't. Stand them behind a building where they're safe. If you're not trying to get, like, if those extra 3 inches aren't going to be that big for you on turn 1, or if you don't plan on trying to get, like, if you don't think you can make that turn 1 charge, even with an additional 3 inches, then there's no point in you being in the transport beforehand.
Agreed.
There's just no point.
But, so that's my strategy against Drukhari. It does quite well. The only game I've gotten so far where they went, they got to go first, that they almost disrupted my plans, it's a person that was our 3rd time playing, and they pretty much knew what I wanted to do at this point.
Right.
And just recklessly abandoned through every raider as far up as they could. And even though I deployed where they couldn't get first turn charges, when I killed their boats, they were like, okay, my entire army's charging wherever I want at this point. So that's like a strategy that counters me. Fortunately, I ended up, it was a very low scoring game. That game I won like 55 to like 52, because we just cucked each other on each other's secondaries and stuff, and I was basically playing super cagey at that point, which is not a style I like playing. But that's how it hurts my list. But if I get to go first, um, if my dice are just average, even slightly below average,
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking up a lot of your boats and a
Right.
lot of your troops probably with it.
Right. Yeah, and that's another reason that you may not want to start guys in a transport is because when the transport dies,
Yep.
somebody's dying inside. It's very rare that you have a full boat of 11
You,
guys and not one dies.
you just want to make sure you don't start your troops within 6 inches of the boats if possible, because I have seen in a game, one of the games I played, where I killed like 5 of their boats and like 3 of them exploded, and they started doing D3 wounds to all because he didn't put his troops in the boats, kind of like you said, but
Right.
he kept them crammed around him, and I was like just picking up squads at that point because like I just got super lucky,
Right.
where
On
I killed a
explosions.
yep I killed a boat the very first one, it blew up, it did like 2 to 3 wounds, one wound from the squads. Killed our boat, didn't blow up. Killed a third boat. It blew up, and then it damaged one of the boats I already damaged earlier in the turn, and killed that boat, and it blew up. And then it just literally at that point he just called the game. He's like, 'cause like his explosions literally picked up
Yeah.
full squads at that point.
So there was a game.
It was brutal.
There was a game I was playing. I don't know, years ago, right? And so I had two Venoms. Both had guys inside. I was playing against Yunari, right? So in the psychic phase, Dark Reapers shoot one of my Venoms and drop some guys. That Venom explodes and kills the second Venom that's right next to it.
Oh,
It explodes, kills some of the guys that had just gotten out.
that's brutal.
So he ends up shooting somewhere else or picking up the second Cavalry Warrior Squad. And he's got these Dark Reapers, Yvrain, and a Wave Serpent all standing right next to me. He charges his Wave Serpent in. The Blaster guy that I have in the Cavalry Warrior Squad overwatches, wounds, gets through save, and rolls a 6 for damage exploding the Wave Serpent. Then
Oh,
the
wow.
not the Yakarn, Yvrain charges, and he does the exact same thing, kills the Yakarn. Yvrain.
Oh.
Like, it was the most beautiful collection of sixes I'd ever seen in my entire life.
I have something not as good as that, but it's like the opposite. I was playing 5th edition, and I was playing a tournament game, and back like the old Fail Morale used to work, you like run away, and you get within like 6 inches of somebody, blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
So I was within 6 inches. He has to roll again to see if he keeps running, and if you ran off the board, your unit just left, right?
Yeah.
He was like 3.1 inches from the board. Rolls a 1 and a 2, which takes him just out of 6 inches for my unit, which was Terminators. I had 4 Terminators there, and it's these 2 tactical Marines, right? So they regroup, and since the Marines, they still get to fire. He shoots at me, hits all 4 times, gets in rapid fire, wounds all 4 times, and I rolled 4 ones. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are
That
you kidding me?"
I just these insane moments I just like to picture in my head like it's a movie going, right? So these guys have just sprinted all the way across the battlefield, right? They're fleeing for their lives, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hold up, we can do this!" and spin around
Yeah.
and just kill the opponent.
Yeah, it's so great. It
So-
cost me that game actually too, which is kind of funny.
But I mean, that's why that's one of the reasons I love this dice game, right? Is because on occasion these dice change the course of the game and they're memorable moments, and you're gonna have that dice moment forever, and it's a fun story, and you get back together and everybody tells their fun stories together, and it's a great part of the community. Um, so I think we're winding up because we're coming up on an hour here.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to get out about your list, about your games, anything that you want to do? You want to do some shout outs, anything like that?
Well, I'd like to actually shout out Joshua Minnick. He ran the Red River GT, him and his group, his team out there. They run a lot of great events. They're part of the GLC. His first year doing it, and honestly, it was a fantastic event. He's already talking about how he wants to fix the train for the next year, but he's a very level-headed, great TO, very fun people out there, and they gave out tremendously good prize support for the amount of people that showed up. Like, I was pretty shocked.
Awesome.
So great event. If you guys ever want to check out an event and you live in near the Midwest or near Ohio at least, check him and his group out. They're super cool. And if anyone else in the Midwest that listens to this likes the events, you can always check out Death to Glory as well. We run a lot of events. A lot of our events sell out super quick for our official events. We started we have our RTT at the 22nd this month. It was originally at 30 people. It sold out within an hour. So we put it up to 42 people, sold that out within an hour, put it up to 52 people, and then announced that we're not going over 52 because we're going to have like 7 or 8 people undefeated at this point in a one-day RTT.
It's too many.
Yeah. Great tournament organizers in the circuit up here. We try to really run very fun, friendly events. We heavily encourage great competition, so bring some strong lists. Just come up and play fun, let people enjoy their games against you while you kick their ass, basically. Yeah, and that's all I got for the call-outs in there. Yeah. Any questions for me?
So I think you've covered pretty much everything. You were really thorough today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. For all those that are watching, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. That way you can check out similar videos like this, where I interview more GT winners, and you see more winning lists, which are facing that way. It's over there. The list is over there. So other than that, we have a video coming up about Valerian and Alea. Those models were provided to us by Born to Game, which is a game store up in Northern Virginia. They do a great job out there. They have a website. You should check it out. Let's see, what else? We're actually going to be doing a giveaway once the models are fully painted and ready to go. So that's going to be a giveaway of Valerian and Alea. I think that's it. I think that's all I got.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I hope to have you on again here soon. Maybe if I see some crazy Dark Angels thing come out, I'll go ahead and hit you up.
All right.